Good afternoon to our merry Marvelites. Welcome to a very special Marvel movie talk. As always, I'm Christian Bladt, and down below, the one and only Mr. Michael Shirley.
Hey guys.
And a thrill to be joined once again by the great Chris Claremont, who, of course, you know from many years of writing X-Men, but there's so much more. I feel like I should put that last, but I always think it's good to start with that. I think 16 years of writing anything is always impressive. And Chris, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
It's quite all right. I'm just don't mind me. I'm probably going to go nuclear any second now, but that's just me.
We'll ask questions that won't raise anybody's blood pressure.
Just to do with modern technology.
Yes, we had a little bit of some issues connecting with you, but we always appreciate when you do have the time. The first thing I wanted to start with is that I know that just this past weekend you were at New York Comic Con, and now I know that there have been you've done a few cons and some in stores and things over the last year and a half, but this seemed like the first big. I don't want to say post-pandemic because that implies that it's over, but since the pandemic started, this was the first big one. And, you shared some great images on your Instagram, which is Chris Claremont. So while we talked to you about it, I wanted to share some of those, but talk a little bit about what it was like to be a big setting,
Well, it was interesting. The Javits was not quite as crammed as it's been in the past. I don't have the real numbers, just the the perception from my limited perspective sitting downstairs in the basement.
Sure.
Reed seemed happy. They were sold out, I think, on Saturday and Sunday, not so much on Thursday and Friday. I don't know if they hit six figures. I would assume they had. Yeah. I know when I was in Atlanta a fortnight earlier, they limited the the attendance to 40,000 plus from their usual 90.
Wow.
So I'm sure we'll find out sooner rather than later, but everyone seemed to be having a good time. The people who were there were really great. As you can see, could have seen from photos, excellent costumes, 2 Dazzlers, which was always an intriguing situation.
Yeah, I got this one right here.
Oh yeah,
that's one, and then next one is the
book.
other.
Yeah, we'll go through these, and here's another Dazzler, and I appreciate when we get the affectionately known as Disco Dazzler. I think that the short hair blue suit is iconic in its old way, but I think if you're going to take the time to cosplay Dazzler, I just hope that nobody was trying to roller skate around the con. But that could have been fun in its own. Oh yeah, I think we did lose him. Yeah, that could have been fun in its own way. I don't know, Michael, if you were going to roller skate if you were going to cosplay as Dazzler, you would be sure to have the roller skates, wouldn't you?
Oh man, I've got a pair in my closet that I'm just itching to put on, but they're black. They totally wouldn't match that.
Oh, they wouldn't match.
I would totally disco them out with some mirror ball tiles to get the good look. I was going to do that.
Well, I appreciate you letting me know that we had lost him for a moment because of the simple fact that because I was on the other screen, I had no idea he wasn't there.
I think he's gone nuclear.
He said that that's what was going to happen, and it's unfortunate because I know that a lot of times these sort of doing these virtual shows, it's great. It gives you a lot of opportunities, but it can also be frustrating for the people on the other end when it doesn't work very smoothly.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's gone now is probably not something that he's going to be hugely excited about. But
I don't imagine
we do appreciate you coming back. I don't know. I think I thought that maybe I had done something, and I don't know. It's almost like I don't want to touch any buttons.
No,
now.
I'm just sitting here staring at the screen, and suddenly hi, would you like to sign up to this? And I'm sitting,
you didn't miss much.
Bloody hate bloody technology.
Yeah. Well,
any road.
That was more that, that's my side hustle as a Jehovah's Witness. I was trying to get you to sign up, Chris. That's, in the middle of the interview, it just pops up and we want to know if you found the word.
Just to point out, I have flown from New York to London in the back of a 747, surrounded by 100 young Latter-day Saint men heading off on mission. And just to put it in perspective, it turned out that a great many of them were X-Men fans.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was an interesting trip.
I would imagine.
Spain, and I spent like an hour trying to convince them that if they're in Barcelona, that they should go see things like the Sagrada Familia. This pointing out that this is like 40 years ago. So,
right.
And they said, we can't go sightseeing. We're on mission. And I said, but surely you have days off. This is one of the most beautiful cities and one of the most beautiful cathedrals in the world. They said, well, no, we have to do what we have to do. And I'm going, well, that's to myself. That's just dumbass.
Yeah.
I mean, because I have a great many friends who are Mormon and a great many fans who are Mormon. Actually, one of the more heartbreaking moments was sitting in, a post-convention just crash party. And there was this young woman who was in tears. And she was a wife and mother. And she was an X-Men fan. And her husband was perfectly prepared to tolerate this eccentricity so long as the children were young enough not to be infected by it. But now that they were old enough that they could actually start reading and be aware more completely of the world around them, it was time for her to give up her affectation. And she was heartbroken because she could not now follow the lives and adventures of her favorite characters. Or actually, I should say people. And one side of my brain is going, yes, I got another one. And the other half is going, that so totally sucks. It's awful.
Yeah.
But, to have that kind of response from readers is exactly what any self-respecting writer wants, because, oh my God, the stuff has an impact. But on the other half, it's like, oh, that's heartbreaking that she has to make that kind of primal choice.
I think she married the wrong man.
Well, yeah, I think that that definitely sounds like the issue. Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, I have a great many Mormon readers who have left the church because of personal beliefs. They're not cool on non-traditional social relationships and attitudes, among other things. So it's the neat trick is attracting the attention of both sides of the equation. Young Mormons who are alternate gender and those who are, it's just that religion has a certain orientation towards being outcast.
It's interesting we're having this conversation today because literally tomorrow, my sister-in-law is marrying a man who was raised Mormon, and he left the church some time ago, and they bonded over their love of things like X-Men, especially Doctor Who, and they're having a Hobbit-themed wedding, a Lord of the Rings-themed wedding, which I think within the confines of the church would not have been allowed. Despite how hugely religious Tolkien was, I think that they probably wouldn't have permitted it.
I think you can't. Every belief has its share of outcasts. Every mainstream social order has its outcast, whether you're Uyghurs or Protestants. What was it on the news this morning? which will engender its own catalog of protests and anger simply because how can you be with Joe because Joe supports abortion rights?
Right.
And the simplest answer is, well, don't bring it up. It's like the Pope can choose what he wants to talk about, and Joe can choose what he wants to talk about, and you can leave aspects of the rest off the table until some other time. It's my favorite revelation, I think, in the last 6 months is, in the beginning, God created Adam. Then God thought about it and had a better idea. I mean, somebody's got to do all the work.
Right, exactly.
It's, you'd be amazed at the kind of reactions, facial reactions one gets just throwing out that little notion. Some men nod, some men don't, some women nod, some women don't. It goes every way you wish. But it's one of the disadvantages of being sentient is we're hard to categorize. And the more one tries, the more frustrated one can get. Welcome to the X universe.
Yeah, and of course, when I knew I was going to talk to you today, I figured we would speak about religion and the creation story. But that's why it's always such a treat to chat with you, because I just never know where we're going to go. One of the things I know we wanted to talk about, Michael, we were talking on the show when the Falcon and Winter Soldier television series was going on, and there was something that I know you immediately wanted to make sure. Well, we have to speak to Chris as soon as we can. So why don't you ask him about that?
I want to know how you like Madripoor. Sorry, what did you say?
Baron Strucker, right?
Well, he's great too.
I wanted to know if Madripoor lived up to your expectations, if it did it justice.
Well, I thought that the one cameo sign of the Princess Bar in the background was sort of cool.
That was very nice, yes.
We liked that too.
I liked it. The thing I liked about Falcon Winter Soldier, was the first episode and a half. We're sitting there kind of going, I don't get it. What's so cool about this? It went down the line, the more interesting it got. That just the idea that you are aware I saved the world, yes, sir, but you have no collateral. Kind of thing. Yeah. I thought, ooh, welcome to the 20s. So in its own little way, it was a surprisingly almost revolutionary. We can't say that for the mouse, but concept of series. The whole idea of a black cap is. And then again, within the context of the failed attempts to reanimate the super soldier program, but testing it with black men, soldiers, it was suddenly a quite interestingly, almost a little bit revolutionary look at the Marvel universe as it is now, which has me looking forward to seeing where it goes with Cap Falcon or Falcon Cap or whatever the heck they're going to call him.
Yeah.
But also with Winter Soldier. I mean, you have two interesting characters there, two naturally conflicted characters. And the thing with Bucky is now he's all alone. Cap's gone. There's no one who he can easily relate to until and unless they bring back Logan. At which point, we have similar backgrounds, at least in terms of social awareness and recognition.
Do you think that he'll actually be around long enough to maybe see Logan in the cinematic universe? I feel like he's on the way out. I could be wrong, though.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, I feel like he's on the way out, but I could be wrong, though.
Well,
the
see,
Winter Soldier.
the problem, the challenge rather, with actors is they get older. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a sensible way to put the screen. I mean, the thing that had me grinning at the end of Infinity War, or whatever, the last Avengers movie, when you're at Tony's funeral,
Right.
is, you know, the camera's cycling around and you're seeing everybody. Hi, all you people who've been in Marvel Avengers movies, this is your cameo. But then they got to this weird tall kid standing all by himself. You know, who the hell is that? And then the answer came, oh, that's the kid from Cap 3. Oh, you mean the boring movie?
So it's Iron Man 3,
well,
because Cap 3 was.
Did I say Cap? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Iron Man 3 is sort of on the short list of not anybody's favorite. Cool, yeah.
Winter Soldier, not.
I know it's confusing. Cap 3 was actually Civil War, which felt like an Avengers movie,
which was the
actually
best.
Cap 3.
I mean, they built up Cap.
Yeah.
Winter Soldier was really good.
One.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, Civil War was like, holy cow, because you actually got to the point where you the grown-up in the room is T'Challa. Yes, you killed my father, but I'm not going to kill you. And you two white idiots in the background need to get your act together.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that it'll be interesting to see, you know, where those stories go, you know, to have the Black Captain America, which is something that I think we all expect that, you know, that will happen in a movie at some point. But, you know, they usually only let you see like the next couple chess moves. We don't quite know where that is going to factor in. You know, we're just going to deal with multiverses and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Eternals being the next one. And then it's like, we'll let you know about 2023 when it gets a little closer.
Yeah, well, sadly, I'm getting into the segment of life where don't push it back too far, guys. But because I like to see them. No, but the thing that struck me was clearly they had someone expecting to be the new Cap. Okay, but what about Iron Man? Oh no, he was going to be the new Iron Man.
Yeah.
But then in the earlier scenes, you have Tony going. Little hideout, and she comes out wearing her mom's iron hat. And I thought the minute I saw that, bingo. There it is. Got it. 9, just graduating from MIT grad school. Not even, you know, that she's so far ahead of the curve. She's, you know, way the hell out there. But think about it. She's been playing with the armor for the last 5 years. So who better to take over her father's legacy than his only child? So she, you know, once she puts on the armor, once the voter is recreating a voice, no one's going to know who's inside. And since the armor is all unstable molecules anyway these days, she just in her head, if not actually a real switch, and boom, it's on, boom, it's off. Who's going to suspect an 8-year-old kid of being Iron Man? And this is where I decided to go totally off the rails.
We're
we're
having a little bit of a lag connection wise, but go ahead. I'm sorry. You said this is where you go totally off the rails.
Right. Since all the AI links that control the armor, Jarvis, and then what's her face, after Jarvis became Vision, who took over.
Yeah, I forget what they named her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tony built an AI version of himself to run the armor, having figured out what his daughter was going to do, because he is, after all, Tony Stark. But he went one step too far, and instead of creating an AI simulacrum, the AI is actually Tony. He created a backup version of himself. So as the AI running the armor, helping the user run the armor, he's actually her dad keeping tabs on her while she's having adventures. But he's terrified she'll tell Pepper, because if Pepper finds out, she'll kill him. But think about it.
Again,
if you have an 8-year-old as Tony Stark, you just sign her to a 10-year contract or a 15-year contract, and you've got at least 5 more Iron Man films watching her grow up and guest starring in all the other ones. To me, as a writer, I would latch onto that with both hands and say, this would be cool. In the same way that having Namor's sister become the new T'Challa. I mean, become the new Black Panther. I mean, to recast somebody different as T'Challa is, yes, it's normal Hollywood procedure, because you have to have a guy being the core of a movie, because let's face it, the Black Widow didn't work. It only made X million dollars. Of course, it was only in the theaters for 12 hours.
Well, you could watch it at home or watch it in the theaters, and when you give people that option,
but if one was at home with Disney Plus, one didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a whole, to come out in the middle of the pandemic as well. It was a whole Koptergeflugen. And it's sort of like the fact that they had everybody else doing voice cameos in What If, and
not
Scarlett Johansson was sort of like,
not Scarlett Johansson.
Cool.
Yeah. No, I know, it's true.
Uncool.
It's
and
that was the impressive thing about that show, was just how many of the voices they did get. But then that makes you notice, like, oh, well, where are the handful that aren't there? And they did a good job. Like the Spider-Man they had sounded so much like Tom Holland. Actually, on our show, everybody thought it was Tom Holland, but I was like, no, I read the credits. It's another actor, but it sounded just like him. And so Scarlett Johansson was very noticeably absent from What If. I agree.
And then getting to the end and realizing there won't be any more cameos by Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
And that was a real, of all the stupid things to be sorry for, it's like, oh man. I mean, it's wonderful that he did this. It's wonderful that he played these roles. It's not fair.
Yeah.
But that, in the cliche, life isn't fair. How do you adapt to it? And it's the same thing. In comics, we can resurrect anybody, everybody, all the time. And so everybody's killing, this is why the whole Krakoa thing, let's take it to the next extreme. We'll resurrect everybody. Yeah. Of course, the fact that the person who has control over all of the core personalities is Mr. Sinister. It's like, really? Are you guys not thinking this through? Or maybe they are, and this is going to be the big reveal. But then how do you feel if you've been resurrected 5 or 6 times, and with each resurrection you are more and more empathetic and obedient to Sinister? That gets a little creepy. But what do I know? I'm 20.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. You would think that the name would be a tell that you don't trust someone named Mr. Sinister, but
really?
I've said on this show, Chris, that within the last few months, Marvel has made a big push with there was a trial of Magneto, and then they had an Inferno, and I was like, yeah, but I've read both of those like 35 years ago, so why do I need to read those things again? Yeah. So I'm just happy to read X-Men 200 again if I want to see the trial of Magneto.
I'm still trying to get a hold of all the copies, which is proving hard. What I love is, but Chris, all you have to do is log on to Comixology, and you can read them. And I said, no, I can't read them. I've tried 5 times. Well, don't you have a read-only tag? No, why not? Because I'm not in the Marvel office. I don't have the access code. Yes, I'm only an employee. I'm not an office employee. So, and I'm not about to spend a gazillion dollars to get a hold of all, to buy all the hard copies.
Sure, of course.
But no, I mean, it's a puzzlement, I mean, I told I think the last interview, I told you the whole thing with my origin of Sinister, right?
Yeah, we talked about it. There was, I remember because I had read it somewhere, and then there's classic X-Men backup stories where you can kind of see that you were starting to tell that story. Yeah, and so I guess it was sort of the manifestation of this boy in an orphanage with Scott. I don't remember if Michael was with us when we talked about that, and that's why his name is Mr. Sinister, because it's like something that a kid would name, right? That's why he has sort of
it's 40 years old at that time and is a genius. He's still, functionally speaking, a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And if you ask a kid to invent a supervillain, bingo.
Yeah.
But because no self-respecting, you're not going to get any of the Marauders to pay attention to a kid. They would just kill him out of principle.
That's true.
So you had to create a scary guy to run, but to then turn around and say that this is what Essex looked like from the start. This is why he has such a stupid name as a real person. But that takes me into the whole, that takes me down Wolverine paths I don't want to go.
Right.
Well, names are the hardest anywhere, especially in comics. And coming up with a great name. I mean, if you look at, Reed Richards, Bruce Banner. Stan had a same initial consonant.
Peter Parker.
Yeah, his formula.
There you go. Something Bruce Banner. Well, Bruce Banner. Did I say Bruce Banner?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Tony Stark was the first. Wow, he broke the mold.
Yeah.
It's names are hard, but you just have to get used to it and find a better name. And that my vision was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, and it's what it is now. So you have to find a way to deal with it. I mean, the giggle for me is I've spent decades about Remy's outfit because I thought it was the dumbest thing imaginable, until I actually sat down and thought about it for 5 minutes and realized you are such an a-hole, Chris, because it's perfect. No. If it's night and you see this guy, what do you shoot at? The piece of color that stands out from everything else. You can't see his head because everything else is covered by the black coat or the black, his headset, his cowl. You shoot for the armor, which is armor. So it doesn't do any damage or substantial damage. Bingo, instant rationale. That fits with Remy's sense of humor. That's all it really takes is 30 seconds of actually thinking rather than bitching to oneself. And you get
that actually.
Go ahead, Michael.
That actually brings me to one of the questions I had for you. I've wondered if you've ever had to work with a writer. You don't have to name any names, of course, but you just
with a writer,
found
not an artist.
I mean, ever had to work with an artist that you just did not click with? You just really didn't even like their work, but you had to find a way to work with them.
Yes.
If so, what was that process like? Like, how did you deal with it? Because I know you are a very strong
You just deal with it because you're theoretically a trained professional. You don't fart around.
Does it affect the way you write it, or do you let them just take it, or do you
no? I mean,
sit down with them and say this is why this is silly, or?
Well, it evolves over decades. I mean, going back, the way you deal with one's associated talent in the 70s is not the way one deals in the 90s or in the aughts or in the 20s. The worst part is finding oneself working with an artist you really wanted to work with and whose work you admire, but the actual doing it doesn't turn out to be what was in mind in the first place. And that's kind of heartbreaking.
Like never meeting your heroes, they say.
Well,
never work with your hero.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it for all one knows, the artist had exactly the same feeling in reverse. Why am I working with this a-hole?
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's a job. You do the job.
Yeah.
Thing is, I'm doing a project now with someone I didn't know before we started working together. And holy cow, this guy is absolutely spectacular. And hopefully at some point next year, you will see the results. But I'm having the best time ever. And he just, came up with some designs for adversaries, sadly for the final issue, that are just absolute. I mean, I'm having a great time. That was what I was doing actually when this started. I'm writing the script as we speak.
Oh,
well,
that's
not
great.
as we speak, but I've got to get back to it when we're done. But it's because it's such a delightful synergy. I have to say, in the course of my career, I've had the ridiculous good fortune to work with some of the best artists in the business, and I hope the stories reflect that. It just I interestingly enough seem to find more trouble working with artists or working with collaborators for other companies other than Marvel. Well, there you go.
This made me think about something that I wasn't planning on asking you. In terms of just at the course of the run, there would be, fill-in artists, and they're, they some of them stand out, obviously. But in a case of like working with Barry Windsor-Smith for Life, Death, and Life, Death 2, is that something that's planned, or does it just come about? Yeah, I mean, because that one seems like a choice, because it's such a specific. I mean, his style fit those stories so well, and one of my favorite standalones is the Uncanny 205, with that he did where Wolverine's
You said in the case of working with Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about it?
Well, so that's a plan, but sometimes when a good example would be like somebody like Rick Leonardi comes in, and it seems like, oh, that's to help the regular artist, catch up or something. How often is it where it's like, oh, this person's drawing that issue, and how many times is it, just more along the line of this story really suits someone? Is it all right if we have them step in for a month or two?
It's different rationales for different times. I mean, Barry was in terms of Life, Death, that was a specific thing. We started in 86.
186, yeah.
With the double size. Then the next issue was 98.
Yep.
And there was supposed to be a third issue, but instead he turned in his Origin of Logan, for which I gladly would have set it all on fire. Not really, but I was really pissed. But that took him off the board for the conclusion of it, which is why it got infiltrated into a whole bunch of other stories in Uncanny, and we never had the third chapter, the third concluding chapter of Life, Death. It's, sometimes it works. With the thing with Rick is, for example, when he came in, well, this is when Mark was doing the basic run, but that was the same time Marvel thought, hey, this book really works as a monthly. Why don't we make it bi-weekly in the summer? We'll sell even more.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I remember what
even
that did
Mark
to
can't pencil that
my
fast.
meager budgeting when both Amazing Spider-Man and Uncanny decided like, well, we're going to make you buy twice as many issues now, and I was like, oh, and of course the annual in the summer. So it was like, yes, thank you for that.
Well, it's, you know, except that the Genosha story was just spectacular.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, bouncing back and forth. I mean, the first issue establishing the dad and child running and him stashing her on a plane, and then proceeding. Rick was just, holy cow, this stuff is wonderful. But the next issue, where everyone gets captured and you have Rogue and Logan fighting for their lives without powers, and of course tactfully stark naked, which they weren't on the cover, but there you go.
Yeah.
Was just as impressive. And then the third, we cut back to Rick, and fourth to Mark. For me, that was just way fun. But that's what comics should be, fun. You shouldn't, from my perspective, one structures out where one wants to go. But you don't nail it to the wall as an unbreachable, unchangeable monolith. Because something cool might happen in the middle. You might find an artist, I mean, the way an artist tells a story, the way something could happen that triggers an impulse in the writer's head that makes want to go down a different pathway and see where that leads. This whole last 20 months, with both the pandemic and the rise of the BLM the BLM concept of Black Lives Matter. Well, it just took, a hiccup for me to think, well, what we should do is a concept of mutant lives matter. But how would that work? Would it be a good thing or a bad thing? From my perspective, looking at the whole iteration of Krakoa, I mean, how would the non-mutant half of the world react to all of this? I pitched an idea that I wanted, to do an arc or to do a series set in Valle Sayada in California, of the mutants who didn't want to go to Krakoa, because, hey, I'm an American. I live here. But more importantly, my wife isn't a mutant. My kids aren't all mutants, if any of them are. How can I walk away from that? It's like saying, hey, Johnny, you're a mutant. You can come to Krakoa. Reed, Sue, Ben, Johnny? Nope, you can't. How does that go? Except, what is it I understand now? That What's-His-Face is married to a non-mutant spouse, but because they're gay, it's okay? They both live on, they live in an enclave in Krakoa?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not in as deep, so I didn't even realize that. Yeah. So I mean, it does. It raises all these questions. Absolutely.
Well, it's there, but none of these questions are limitations. They're inspirations for. The answers are the answers can be inspirations for new stories. That's the key element. What question is asked by this reality, the answer of which could trigger something altogether different? I mean, for me, flipping a couple of characters and ideas around in my head, I realized that I had set up a story arc in 1978 which would be the thing I would, if I ever did a story along these lines, that would be where it came out of. Because I have all this history to draw from, and a lot of it is much more relevant to what's happening than I thought or anyone else thought. The question now is, what will the higher authorities at Marvel think? But that's the point. You look at the reality that is crafted, and you figure out, where can I take it? What can I do, and where can I take it? And the fun thing about comics always has been that we are not limited by the reality of the world. You can make the best sequence of movies you want, but at some point, Robert Downey Jr. is going to get tired.
Or old.
Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or Chris Pyle is going to get tired. They'll want to go on to something else. Or you'll just, so you have to find new paths. Just looking at the commercials for the Inhumans. Hi, I'm the kid in the Inhumans pantheon. Yes. I'm 15,000 years old. Yes. Sorry, the Eternal. Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
The Inhumans was a bit of a misfire. The TV
yes,
series.
I know.
I didn't hate it as much as everyone else.
And I didn't hate it just because I'm like, if they just focus more on Lockjaw and having him teleport, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That should be the whole show.
See, I invented baby Lockjaw who could hang out with Franklin.
It broke up a little bit. You're saying you came up with baby Lockjaw,
who was Franklin's pet puppy.
Oh, that's a great idea. Love that.
Well, no, this is 20. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is 20 years ago in 98.
Right. Yeah.
But no, but the point I'm making is, you have one of the Inhuman Celestials. What the hell?
Yes.
The Eternals.
So the Eternals are the main characters. Yeah, and then the Deviants.
Right,
and
Angelina
the
Jolie's team of all the really cool. But you have one of them who's a kid. But that
correct, yeah.
But if you have to wait 3 years for the next movie, how can you use him? He's going to suddenly grow up. Therefore, will not be an eternal kid anymore. This is a problem. Yeah. But therein lies the difference between drawing images on paper and using real people. What if someone comes up with a really great Chris Evans story for Captain America, and he might decide, okay, I'll do it. You don't know. One doesn't know, and one has to figure it out, because sooner or later, Michael Fassbinder will indeed turn into Ian McKellen.
That's a great point.
And that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, 20 years ago, Charlie was Charlie. It's sooner or later, everybody was 20 years younger in the X Pantheon. Yes. Hugh Jackman at 30 is not Hugh Jackman at 50. Patrick Stewart at 50 is not Patrick Stewart at 70.
Right.
They look great. Their acting is as brilliant as ever. But if you look kind of closely in Captain Marvel, Samuel Jackson is not as spry as someone his age should be, because he's not. He's 20 years older, which is not a bad thing. But sooner or later, you have to strike a balance. And the interesting thing about the Marvel Pantheon, or the X Pantheon, is you've got a lot of characters in the background. But thinking back to when, I wrote my treatment for Gambit, the Channing Tatum then is not the Channing Tatum today, and is certainly not the Channing Tatum who would be in 5 years when they actually get around to making a Gambit movie.
You're correct.
Do you want to go with it?
We will get one?
What?
Do you think we will get a Gambit movie?
If you make the movie then, but then it'll be 2 or 3 years before you make another one, that becomes a serious, not challenge. Well, yes, challenge. Because Hollywood has never dealt with, perhaps outside of perhaps the Bond films, someone doing 5 films over a course of a decade, if not more, or in the X-Men's case, 20 years, and having to produce a cast for it. That's, Sophie Turner, who was great as Phoenix 4 years ago. Well, 6 years ago when they actually shot the film,
right,
is not the same person she'll be in 5 years if you want to do it over again.
Yeah, and I think that's why, you use the example of the Bond films. I mean, I think that it was fairly clear. I believe A View to a Kill was the last one with Roger Moore, and he was.
I haven't seen it.
Oh no, A View to a Kill is the one from 1983. So that's the one with Roger Moore. Yeah.
God, that was.
No. The No Time to Die, I will say nothing about, but I will let you know that I enjoyed it. That's what I will tell you about it.
Well, please don't say anything about View to a Kill either, because it was such a.
No, it wasn't good, but that's the point. It's like the movie's not great. Has a phenomenal song by Duran Duran, but apart from that, he's too old in it. And then obviously there's the behind the scenes machinations, but around the same time you got Never Say Never Again with Sean Connery as the old Bond, which is like, oh yeah, if you adapt it in that way, that's a great idea to do that. So I think that's kind of what you're saying. If there's like, oh, here's an older Captain America story for Chris Evans, maybe he would be interested in that.
No, I who knows? But then again, you'd have to figure out how that fits in with the new cap.
That's true.
The new Captain America. I mean, but that's always going to be the challenge with films as opposed to comics. We're not limited by time. We're limited perhaps by space, the 20 pages every issue. But so we do short stories, and we can do them brilliantly well if we do them right. Sorry, I keep looking at the screen and not the camera, so I'm always, this is my side.
That's okay. I find myself doing that a lot. Yeah.
No, I mean that's the challenge. I mean, I suppose you could say Batman has an advantage. His face is covered. I just always am intrigued by how Bruce Wayne finds the time to put on the eye makeup or take it off.
Yeah. Alfred doesn't strike me as somebody who's good at getting him ready for media appearances. I feel like he has to do it himself.
That was the thing I found slightly more appropriate about the third Christian Bale film, because oh my God, they actually have staff at Wayne Manor.
Right. It's not just Alfred.
Well, that's what's driving me crazy about Titans is like you have what's his face? Crazy Robin.
Nightwing.
No.
Oh, you mean the
Red
Jason
Hood.
Todd. Yeah. Red Hood. Yeah.
And what's his face? The Shrink. Scarecrow. Just walking in and taking over the place.
Yeah.
All I could think of was like, give me a break. You mean you're going to tell me that Bruce or Nightwing don't have a way of locking down the facility?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
I mean, even my townhouse in Burbank has a Ring doorbell. Scarecrow's not walking in and taking over my house without me knowing he's here.
No, I just have a puppy. That makes all the difference.
That makes all the difference.
Well, come on, guys. I mean, it's sort of zany. It's like, well, I won't go any further into Titans because it's just like, oh, for goodness sakes. After a while, it's like, hi, I'm Wonder Girl. I'm back from the dead. Whoopee! No, it's not a bad scene where she's striding down. But then I'm sitting there looking. It's like the taxi drops. We can't go any closer to Gotham. Okay, Gotham is a city of 9.5 million people. Yes. Why are you dropping me in the middle of Kansas? And she walks and walks and walks, and she comes to, hi, we're the military checkpoint. Okay, so I can just like cut off the road, go like 50 steps into the field, walk past you and cut back in, and you won't notice? Because where's everybody else? You're just two guys on a road, which doesn't look like, how should we put it, a super highway? I mean, I don't know how it is in Los Angeles, but here in New York, you sort of know you're getting to New York fairly early.
Yeah.
And most of the roads leading to New York have many, many lanes. I mean, if you were coming up I-5 from San Diego, and just for the sake of argument, you were walking by LAX, the confusion would be which road to take. They're all
true.
15 lanes, and they all go up and down and sideways and in and out. You could find yourself in Laguna Beach. You could find yourself walking over towards, walking east into, it's crazy. Just try locking down LA.
Yeah. No, it's on my to-do list, but
Locking it down?
Yeah.
Why don't you just pop up a volcano in Van Nuys and in the La Brea tar pits, and there are still occupied skyscrapers all around.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to make sure I talk to you about is since the last time I talked to you, I've actually gotten this, and you can't watch it on Comixology. You can't read it on Comixology. The Chris Claremont Paragon collection. Now, it's a little misleading for our video listeners because it is in this, but then the actual volume is a little bit more manageable. It's like inside the fake bookcase. But no.
It's, you want to have a good home for your book.
Agreed. Yeah.
That book comes with a house.
What?
Yeah.
So that book comes with its own house.
Yeah.
But that's as it should be, because you have 8
all kinds of good stuff,
really
in there,
gorgeous sketches, really gorgeous pieces of art. You've got, look, a Phoenix whatever that I have no idea what it is, and but you also have the Wolverine story, separate, and then you have the prelude to Days of Future Past by me and Salva inside the there you go, the Paragon edition.
Yeah, which that's inside the volume, and I was going to ask you about that first. In terms of revisiting that story, which is obviously one of the more iconic, really just comic book stories just in general, but sort of going back into it and sort of the selection of characters I found to be interesting because, I know that you have written stories with Bishop, I think when you came back, but he is a character that I believe, I don't know that you were involved with. I think he debuted right after you left the first time. Yep. So I thought his inclusion made sense because obviously he's a character that deals with time travel, but there's also a version of Iron Man, which, we were sort of speaking about ideas before. Sorry, that I didn't realize that. Well, I think I don't know.
Pretend he's not right there.
Yeah, just pretend I didn't say that. But there's a lot in there. Let's just say that you got to choose some characters, and what was that process? I mean, it's definitely a different collection of characters than you had at your disposal in 1980 when you wrote the original story.
Well, I wanted to know what would be the coolest team ever, and where would I get them from? And I like the idea of Kurt because Kurt is the natural outcast leader of the team, and it's even better because he's on the wall in the first part as dead. Right. The joke being, of course, that his wife threw herself in front of him and gave him to take the bullet and give him a chance to teleport away, which we refer to in the story. Sage is there because Sage is my badass super brain.
I love that you put her in this one.
Well, I love the fact that they've totally forgotten who she is for the current line of issues.
The Gifted didn't forget about her,
but that's just But then we also have Bloody Bess,
right?
Which is something I set up years ago when I did that arc of Nightcrawler after they brought him back from the dead, because I just love the idea of, her rationale is she's Elizabeth Braddock from Earth 1. She doesn't pay attention to these ne'er-do-wells who followed her. And yes, she's a badass. Yes, she's crazy. Yes, she likes killing people. But one look at Kurt and she was in love, and one look at her and he was in love. Life is complicated. One of, my true love is defending heaven from the forces of evil, and my true love is helping me stave off evil here on Earth. I look like a demon occasionally. Things get complicated. But the interesting thing is, when I actually started working on it, there were scenes in the story where young Stark cracks open the armor to when she has to use computers and such. And I'm looking at this, and it suddenly dawned on me, if you have a world of Sentinel nanotech, the last thing you're going to do is crack open the armor. So basically, she's been living in that armor ever since the world crashed. She's been growing up inside the armor. What she's wearing, she's basically, that is her world. That is her life. She's trapped inside her pressure suit, so to speak, which is, she's saved, but at a terrible price. And as they point out in the story, she's the only one the Sentinels won't see coming, because she's not a mutant. All that said, it comes down to the to rescue Betsy, not to rescue Rachel, and the surprises they encounter doing that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Rachel, because that was one of the things that really jumped out at me in that story, is that clearly it's something that you've written about a fair amount, but it's very casual in the story, but there's this interaction between Rachel and Kitty. I guess she's really Kate at that point. And you did that series with them that was called the series was called True Friends, and I think that and again, I believe that's Rick Leonardi, since someone we were speaking about earlier. So the question becomes sort of this idea of, was there sort of this idea that, because it seemed like it was a kind of a natural progression that, Illyana was Kitty's best friend. They moved to London, and then she hangs out with Rachel a lot more. And Excalibur in general is something actually we want to talk to you about. What was just you as a writer, sort of those relationships? I think that, when Rachel's first introduced, obviously she seems to be very different than she ends up, even by just a few years later in Excalibur. So I find her to be, a fascinating character. And Michael, I think she's one of your favorites. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know you love Rachel. Yeah.
Well, the thing with Rachel is that, had there been any indication back in the day that the X Factor was coming along, and that the core of it was the resurrection of Jean, I would have had second thoughts about creating Rachel in the first place.
Right.
The problem with the whole essence of that character derived from the fact that Jean was dead and Jean was not coming back, that there was this primal sense of loss. But the revelatory moment for her is when she finds out that Scott is married to Madeline, and
Right.
B, they have a baby, a boy. And that means her entire life has been disavowed, which explains why in the reality she came from, Kitty was married to Peter. In the reality she comes to, Earth, Marvel Earth, that's not the case. The same thing that's established in Days of Future Past is her last scene where she's holding on to Kate's body, and what she's saying is, I love you, functionally, my true love, my dear love. I have to go back and look at it. There was something there. I picked up on the something there and moved it over to what I was doing. And that's why in X-Men, the 3-parter I did of how this all comes to an end, Kitty is president of the United States. She is unique as a president, but not because she's a woman, not because she's a mutant, because her firstborn child is a redhead. The reader can then draw their own conclusions. But the fact is that between Mystique and Destiny, and between Kate and Rachel, I was doing all this stuff 40 years ago. I was just being quiet about it because we were under the comics code.
Well, that brings me to a question that I know some of our fans had mentioned.
Let me bring it up on the screen, Michael, because
right.
we asked people to tweet questions for you, and we got some great ones.
You realize, of course, that communicating over Twitter, the shorthand is not tweet.
Is it twit?
Twit. Yeah. We who are English understand this. Okay. Not sure if he got close.
No, I'll read it. That's okay. I'll read it. So this is Connor Reads X-Men, and he's one of a number of accounts where they actually go issue by issue through your run of X-Men, but then they also veer off to New Mutants and, you know, the tie-ins, some of which you wrote, some of which you didn't, but sometimes they're pertinent. But so Connor had a very specific question that ties directly into this. So Connor says, not sure if Chris would get close to answering this, but if he could have made any of the subtextually queer relationships into hard canon, which pairing and why? He also says, thank you for giving us these incredible texts worth reading, analyzing, dissecting, and loving. I mean, we're essentially talking about it at the moment, but I wanted, since Connor asked about it, I thought I would include his question.
Well, I'm of mixed response in that my classic answer is like, is so-and-so such and such? None of your damn business. Do you ask everybody you meet, hi, are you straight? You know, it's like there is a certain measure of courtesy and decorum that needs to be applied to interpersonal relationships. Sometimes it's obvious, i.e. Destiny and Mystique. Other times, I mean, the fact is Kitty is conflicted because her first true love was in 1936 and he died. You know, she was ready to stay there and live happily ever after with him, but she got yanked back to the present and was then informed by someone she knew as Lilibet, a kid who was her friend, but is now Elizabeth Windsor, monarch, that he died in the war. She's lost that primal moment of her past, and it breaks her heart. But who is there by her side every moment, there and back? Her other true love. It's not that she is one thing or the other, to me anyway, which that might invalidate his question or his faith in me as a writer, but for me, it's it's not that she is one thing or the other. She has two true loves. And within that framework, everything else is irrelevant. I mean, it's, or not relevant, not irrelevant. It doesn't, it's just, this is, for better or worse, Rachel's, again, this is in my perception of the Marvel Universe, which is a uniquely twisted reality.
Sure. The Claremont verse.
Rachel is the person with whom Kate will spend the rest of eternity with. And by eternity, we're talking a really, really, really long time, because Kate didn't read the fine print when she agreed to become Guardian of Forever. And God tends to take these things seriously.
Sort of tying into that,
Sorry.
No, actually, that was the same question. That's my mistake. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I can't give you a sensible answer.
No, I think that's I think that's a great answer, and I follow Connor on Twitter, and I feel pretty confident that he will appreciate that. So this is another account that's similar to that one in the sense of going issue by issue, uncanny excerpts. So they want to know, what are some of the character relationships and interactions you most enjoyed writing, and if you could talk about some of the inspirations for some, and it doesn't even have to be your absolute favorite, but just some pairing that comes to mind.
Well, I try not to look back. I mean, looking back is your province. For me, it's the relationships and the fun I'm doing now. Again, I'm writing a story where, if I'm lucky, eyebrows will rise. People will grimace. Some of them will be really, really pissed. And continuity mavens will wrench their hair, assuming they haven't, like me. No, because the thing is, the idea of writing new stories is to come up with new insights and new inspirations. And in this one series, I came up with a doozy, or two. So I'll be curious to see how people respond to that. But for me, it's moving ahead. It's finding what kind of friendship do Kitty or Kate have with Franklin? Because it's grounded. It's grounded. He helped save her life. Franklin Richards.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's, again, it's taking, that's why that's one of the reasons I find it, for the last few years, I've sort of been trapped in my bubble, which is my first run. Because the more I look around at stuff I was doing then, the more I thought, oh my God, I should have followed this lead 40 years ago, because it's effing brilliant. Why didn't I see it then? Oh, I must have been storing it up for something I would do down the line. And other people took over. Just something as simple as, is Kitty still permanently intangible? Apparently not. Well, that makes me irked, because that made her fun. It gave her challenges. It made her less like everyone else. And I don't really want to write characters who are like everyone else. I mean, what's the point of being part of X? And I find myself more and more not using men as to that. Just give it the letter and move on. What I want to see what's over the next horizon. I don't want to see what I shoulda, woulda, coulda done
before
half the readership was born. and half the editors. Because that's a box, and I don't like being in a box. I want to break out of it. I want to, it's I want to come up with stories. Well, what I really loved was mechanics. Why? Because it was me taking Kat and putting her in an absolutely antithetic reality to the X canon. She's going to school at the University of Chicago. Oh my God, she's doing something that relates to what all of the readers do. Going to school, having friends, dealing with shite like you're being investigated because you might be a mutant. Really? Yes, I'm a mutant. And they make a face, and then she goes out and finds out why. Because everyone else in her class had exactly the same answer. Yes, I'm a mutant. Fuck you. No, but to me, that's writing about people living in a ghetto and enjoying it is not my cup of tea. I want to write stories about people in the real world trying to deal with the fact that, this is horrible. But imagine a mutant COVID. Imagine trying to cope with it. Imagine the consequences. Come up with a disease that does something awful to mutants. Ideally kills many of them off, but whatever. How do you cope? How do you find a way to... Who do you turn to? If you can't tell your parents who and what you are, but what you are defines the world that you live in. I mean, you deal with questions like this and realities like this by finding a way to apply them to the real world the readers live in, the writers live in, and then take it the next step and figuring out a response that maybe if it applies in the comic, could help someone reading it apply it in the real world. What is so bad about that? But by the same token, shouldn't that, as a creator, as a writer, as a reader, necessary? Because it's speaking to the audience in terms that hopefully the audience will respect and embrace, rather than walking another path that might not be as inclusive. Yes, would we all like to go to Oz? But would it be as much fun?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you hang out with the Lollipop Guild, it's one thing, and then if you're with the Flying Monkeys, it's obviously something entirely different. So you don't really know what's going to happen when you walk through that door.
But you could apply the Lollipop Guild and the Monkeys and all the other subsets of Oz to make a relevant analogy. It's like saying, "Hi, we're hobbits, but we helped save the world." Okay, now what? How does that? What happens next week? This to me is fun. This is what writing is all about. This is maybe what writing comics is all about, because we can do it like that, and if you have the right artist, it can look effing brilliant. And that's... For me, I want the readers to sit there and look at the page and go, huh. I mean, that's why the sort of punchline at the end of the short story in the issue, the original story in the omnibus bus, is Kate looking down and thinking ahead to what she knows is coming, but what Rachel doesn't. And hinting at something that in continuity didn't exist then. But, oh, by the way, why is she standing right next to Gateway? What does that mean? I don't know. But maybe if we get another omnibus, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's trying as hard as possible to take the readers by surprise and keep them on the edge of their seat by watching good 90-minute film. That's, you want to go in, sit there, eat your popcorn, drink your soda, and go out saying, what the hell happens next? When's the next movie?
Yeah.
That's, and it's that, why is that such an antithetical question? I mean, I would love to see what Simon Kinberg originally shot, just to compare it with what actually came out for Dark Phoenix.
Right.
I would love to see the original third act. I'm sure that got burned. But just so I could compare it with Captain Marvel and stop looking at it and thinking, hey, Captain Marvel, you borrowed that visual effect. I know that visual effect.
Yeah.
I helped create it. When she's standing there confronting Ronan. And I'm thinking, looks an awful lot like a phoenix to me. But that's just me being a brat. No, but that's
right.
No, this is what we are: storyboards from which you can make a kick-ass movie. I mean, this is why Lauren Shuler Donner got into producing stupid X-Men films, because she wanted to make an adaptation of Frank's and my short story of the miniseries. Imagine if they'd done it right. No, I'm serious. Imagine if we'd found a way. The first two acts of The Wolverine, pretty close.
Yeah.
The third act, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the first time that I had a chance to talk to you was right after that came out, and that's 2013 at this point. And it's the thought that I still have is how great the first two acts are, and I still remember the moment, even though I haven't seen the film in years. He gets onto a motorcycle and he drives that motorcycle into another movie that is not as good as what I had seen before. That movie that is the third act, I'm like, no, I don't like this part.
Yeah, and you could do it. All it takes is some simple thought. It's like you have the Yakuza, you have the Hand scattered all over this town, waiting for the motorcycle, and then it suddenly stops, and they're going, "What's going on? What's going on?" And then suddenly they start disappearing. Someone's taking them out. Someone's moving through the shadows. What the hell? You want to go after Logan, Logan's going to go after you. And he's better than they are. Which then makes the final confrontation with, what's his face? The head Yakuza.
Yeah.
That much more dramatic, because Logan's winning. And then, oh my God, he beat Logan. It means something, rather than just walking down the center of the street getting shot at. That's like, it may be that Hugh Jackman didn't want to do it. That's a whole different set of equations. But at least set it in motion, so that when we get to the confrontation with the giant robot, there's more going on here than just Wolverine screaming as his claws are ripped out of his hand. I mean, there's... You've got to come up with a moment that is the equivalent of Robert Downey Jr. saying, it's like, I'm Thanos. I'm Iron Man. Boom. And it's like, whoa, okay. That was not worth 7 hours, but that's an ending. That's a kick-ass moment. you could have trimmed down the previous 20 minutes, but 40 minutes. Anyway, but that's the idea. You have a moment that just makes you sit, whoa, I love that. What happens next? And then you go, it shouldn't be that hard, oddly enough, sitting through Shang-Chi and thinking, okay, the guy's not bad. Aquafina is, again, knocks the socks off the building. And I'm sorry, having Ben Kingsley suddenly pop up, it's like, didn't see that one coming. That's cool.
Did not see that coming. I agree.
It works. How I'm hiding.
Yeah.
I'm hiding here. Don't spoil it. And thinking he's still alive. He can be in the second one. But just a fight scene between Michelle Yeoh and the dad was was cool. The monsters, it's another set of CGI mega stuff. But at least, and I have to say, the five end of film cameos were just like, huh. And the fact that you had Captain Marvel and Hank just kind of going, we actually don't know what's going on. You're on your own. Okay, I'll buy that. Clearly we're setting up the next arc, but it had as many pluses as minuses, which is not a bad thing, especially for Shang-Chi. I mean, I'm looking forward, fingers crossed, to Aquafina being in the next Avengers just for the giggles. But at least I'm curious. I hopefully will be as equally curious at the end of the
Eternals.
Thank you. God, I back in the day. But that's what it needs. I mean, it would be a giggle if out of nowhere. I mean, but this is, I think, again, I said this last time. My ending for Captain Marvel woulda, shoulda, coulda been, you cut to the end of the credits, black screen, and suddenly you hear a phone ringing. And it's ringing, and you're thinking, what the hell is this? Did somebody not turn off the soundtrack? And then suddenly the lights come on, and you're in a high-rise overlooking Boston, and there's a phone ringing, and Carol walks over, picks up the phone, and you hear Patrick Stewart go, Carol? And she looks at the phone and goes, and looks at the screen and grins. And we cut to black. And maybe throw an X in there somewhere with the end. Actually, the end and then X. Question mark.
Well, there's a rumor that we're going to get Rogue in Captain Marvel 2. Is that something you'd be interested in seeing?
Well, I'm always in, but I live on the East Coast and Marvel Studios is in Australia. I mean, look, all I did was creator and write the source material. I'm the last person they're going to call about anything, sadly.
But would you like to see her character with Brie Larson as that iteration of Captain Marvel?
I would like to see them get her right in that. No, I would like to see them get her right in that. I would like to see her established with a relationship to Mystique and Destiny. I would like. It would be it would be interesting having her deal with Captain Marvel simply, oddly enough, to remove the question mark about powers, since Kevin's brilliant idea was Captain Marvel is boring. Oh wait, but Captain Marvel turned into Binary. Binary has really cool powers because Dave and I gave her all of Phoenix's visuals, but she's controlled by Fox. Well, we're trying to Fox. They won't notice. So they just swiped all her powers and gave them to Cap. But now that the X-Men are back, and if you're an Oscar-winning actress, maybe you don't want to spend the next 10 years doing Captain Marvel. It might be a way to resolve this situation, especially if they're introducing Ms. Marvel, which is the young
Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan,
Kamala Khan.
the Middle Eastern, the Muslim American Ms. Marvel. Yeah, that's a show for Disney Plus that's currently being worked on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the giggle for me in a way is that Sage's origin is somewhere up in Afghanistan. She's Afghan, rescuing Charles and becoming, in my continuity, the first mutant that he drafted to infiltrate the Hellfire Club, because she's a sneaky girl, and that's what he needs. He needs somebody tough, resourceful, and smarter than everybody else, which is Sage, and which wasn't the 5 original kids. But that would, for me, would be fun to play with. What would it be like to be one of the original X crew, but to be an Afghan refugee? Certainly relevant, certainly sets you apart from the primarily substantially white country around one. That could be fun. But if you're talking about the X-Men being the embodiment of outsiders, bingo.
I was very slow on the draw here. I wasn't loaded with an image of Binary, but since we were talking about her, I think it's always important to just remind everyone just what great visuals she had as that version of Carol Danvers.
For the longest time, I thought that was Rachel. Like, before I got in and was fully reading into all the stories and knew that was not what was going on, it looks so much like the cover. Well, I'm sure you know exactly the cover I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, no. But the thing is that Dave's and my ambition was to give Carol a reality that was not derivative, and that that Captain Marvel. She would be, Ms. Marvel was derivative of Captain Marvel, no matter what we did. I mean, she started out for 20 issues with the same outfit. Yeah. And then we gave her the black suit, the black bathing suit. But Binary was, let's do it. Let's give her something that is uniquely hers and see where it leads. And unfortunately, like a lot of stuff that I did with her, it just vanished after I left.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're going to get Brie Larson is Binary.
No, I don't.
But the other practical reality is that comic book costumes work on the page, A, because they're drawings, and B, because the people have perfect bodies. Whereas in the movies, you have to deal with real reality. Now, the Widow costume, especially in her movie, all the iterations look great. Captain Marvel looked great. That, they aren't comic book costumes, they are movie costumes, but they carry the same impact as good comic book costumes. Because the reality is, real people have to wear them, real people have real bodies, and real people or their stunt doubles have to do real stunts. And you can't screw around with that.
That was one of my big... Sorry, go ahead. Oh, well, that was one of my big problems originally with the X-Men, the first X-Men film. As like a 15-year-old, I was like, I want to see the suits. And I've always judged movies about how good they do with their suits. But when I see a movie like The Eternals coming out, and I'm seeing these suits that look so kind of like direct from comic, they do look a little hokey, and it is kind of jarring to me to see the Eternals outfits and how they're going more comic booky with them.
I didn't mind them, at least from the trailers, so much. I just go back to Next Generation. Why are they wearing suits that zip up the back?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to wear, you've got to find where to, where the zipper fits together. And B, you've got to draw, everybody on the ship has a personal, either they share rooms with somebody else, or B, they have a personal.
I know where you're going with
person,
this.
so someone's got to zip them up.
Yeah.
I mean, forgive me. You see any outfit in the U.S. or in any military in the current reality of the world that zips up the back like that? I mean, yes. Obviously, scuba suits do. But if you notice, scuba suits have a what 1 meter long line hanging off the zipper. So and the zipper only like opens it up so you can then take it off and peel yourself out of it, and then you have to peel yourself back in. It's not like the zipper actually separates two pieces of clothes. You've got to find a way to balance the visuals with the practicality.
Yeah, and this was one of the things for Falcon and Winter Soldier that they showed sort of behind the scenes, that the cowl that Sam had, every time he turned his head, it like popped open. So they had to do visual effects on every time he turned his head to keep it still. So yeah, I think that that's such a huge part of the problem is, especially, you're talking about the first X-Men, which was, released in 2000. No one was going to go in and adjust something, if Logan had something.
Fox. I mean, come on, that was so far beyond the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think that they did a great job with that film, but the fact that the penultimate, not the penultimate, but the climax, the fight scene takes place in the gift shop at the Statue of Liberty shows that somebody came around, the line producer was like, you can't spend any more money than that. We've gone into the red too much.
And actually that was, Fox ended up throwing a couple of more bucks into it when they started getting the advanced responses. And realizing if we open at the way this is looking, with it looking like a POS, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's, again, it's like looking at the first two Chris Pine Star Treks.
Yeah.
The clothes, the uniforms, the Starship uniforms looked great. And then suddenly by the third film, you had to go, oh, we better get to the second season uniforms. And it's like, oh, geez.
Yeah. No, I know.
It's like you couldn't just hold on to what you had that worked. On the other hand, they got to wear civilian clothes every so often, which looked good.
That's true.
You just got to find, forgive me, there aren't that many of us left who saw the original the original series.
Yeah.
A lot of us saw the Patrick Stewart series, but you really don't want to go there because what happened? Patrick Stewart started wearing a jacket. Why? Because it made him look like less of an idiot.
Well, every time he stood up, he had to fix his uniform, and it was really just
Everybody
him.
did.
Yeah, that's true. He had to. You're right. They all had to do it.
It's like
Chris,
poor Deanna Troy.
Well, yeah.
With all that,
she didn't even wear a uniform until like the fourth season.
I was just thinking, wouldn't it have been cool if William Shatner had taken the ride on the other day, wearing the second season uniform with the V-neck? Because sometimes over the course of an 8-month shooting period, people gain weight.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos was not going to have that. He wanted him in that blue origin suit.
He wanted him to match the action figures that he sent them up there with. Chris, there's so many directions that we can go right now. One of the questions, I know that one of our regular viewers, they read about a story. So I don't actually know if this is true, but he read about, this is going back quite some time, that when the first Star Wars was released in 1977, that you were working, obviously, in the bullpen in Marvel, because everybody pretty much worked there. And he read that you went to one of the first screenings and you held a place in line for everyone in the bullpen. And that means that 20, 30 people all showed up and got in line behind you. Is this a true story?
No, there was no line.
No,
there was no line.
No, I showed up at the Ziegfeld. What or was it the Astor Plaza? It was the Astor Plaza. The first film was at 10, I think or 11. I showed up like an hour earlier.
Yeah.
I walked in, there was nobody there were like 10 people in the theater. Over the course of the next hour or so, it filled up slowly.
Oh, I see.
But when I came out 2.5 hours later, the line was it was around an entire New York City block, which is huge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And by evening, it was three people, 3 rows deep. When I came back, I was hanging out with the bullpen, came back like a week later, and there were a clutch of people from the bullpen, and I was just hanging out with them and talking, and then the line started moving, and they took me with it, and I just went with the flow and went in, which didn't actually thrill the people behind us. You're cutting the line, you son of a... Well, I'm just talking,
Yeah.
So no, it wasn't the first time, it was the second time.
Oh,
and
that's
I wasn't holding place for the bullpen. What ended up happening was the bullpen held a place for me.
Well, see, there you go. That's it's fun though, because when it's more like when I would read back issues and you'd see like the bullpen, and Stan still did the soapbox and everything, and you referenced it before. Obviously there's no centralized location, people work from wherever, and I'm sure it.
No. The
Really?
original bullpen was a centralized location.
Mhm.
It was that. The difference between Marvel then and Marvel now was that Marvel was a communal space. What you had, yes, there was a bullpen. How did you know this? Because writers a lot would come in and we would just schmooze with the editors. We would sit there and bat ideas back and forth. We would actively work on our stuff. We would show pages to other people and like, God, Frank, this is great. This is what I got. This is what John Byrne's doing with me. We would synergize. And out of that synergy, it's like I'm talking to Louise Simonson, pitching. Okay, this is my idea for the Marvel DC team up. The X-Men are there, and we got Dark Phoenix, and we got Darkseid. And the minute as I'm saying this, Walter is walking down the hall outside the office, and suddenly he pivots his head in the doorway and says, "Somebody mentioned Darkseid?" And right then, boom, we had it. Walter drawing, me writing, Darkseid, Dark Phoenix, off to the farm. And, we had to throw in Deathstroke or Deathstroke or whatever, the Terminator, because we had to get a Teen Titan villain in.
Oh, that makes sense.
But, well, it was contract. We had to. But the point was, that's how things happen. Being in the right place at the right time for a moment of synergy, and you were off and running.
Well, we get a little glimpse.
Today doesn't happen because no one's in the office.
Yeah, we get a glimpse of that in the Marvel 616 documentary, how things are a little different. And people are all over the world working out of camper vans, on beaches. Some people, they showed Dan Slott in the office. And that brought me to a question. It seems like he takes a really long time to write and is very difficult, to just get all this stuff out of him. Are you a quick writer? Like when you have an idea, do you just get it all out? Are you a quick writer, or are they saying, "Chris, send us another page"?
You blanked out for the
question. Just reiterate the part about
sitting
Dan.
there.
Oh, okay. So you see in the episode where they're talking about being in the bullpen, Dan, they're just trying to pull all this stuff out of him. Are you a quick writer, or are they always saying, "Chris, we want another page, we want another page," or are you just sending pages and pages and pages?
I would be a lot further along in my script today. No, I mean, if it's due Monday, I'll get it to you Monday. Maybe Wednesday, but that's it. No, this is a job.
You're not a diva.
What?
You're not a diva about it.
Maybe for 43 hours last week, I could be considered a partial diva, not while people are around, but
Right.
no, this is a job.
Sure.
You do a job. It's like no, you. There are exceptions to every rule, but
Yeah.
if this is a monthly book, I'm gonna get it out. If for no other, here's the thing. Back in the day, Marvel, for whatever madcap reasons, put me and Salvador La Roca together on Extreme X-Men. Now,
Which I love, by the way.
Oh, I did too. But oddly enough, I loved it as much with Igor Corday as I did with Salva. It went in a totally different direction, but holy cow, was it gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
Totally different visual direction, I mean.
Right.
But so Salva back then could do 2 books a month. So my deal with Marvel was 2 books a month. And Joe wasn't being enthusiastic about getting me the second book because they had a lot of other people to do and didn't have a spare book lying around. So Salva and I just kept sending Salva plots or scripts. He just kept drawing. I just kept writing. And this was, by the time we got to summer, I get an impassioned text, whatever, from Joe, because the publisher just walked in and said, "What the fuck is going on here? Claremont's 12 issues ahead, and the book hasn't even come out yet." And it was worse than that, because 5 of them were finished, sitting in the drawer. The other 5 or 6 were in various stages of completion. And I got called on the carpet, and I said, "What the hell's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm supposed to get 2 books a month. You didn't give me the other book. So yeah. Salva's got a deal as well. We just kept going. No one said not to." And the response was, "We're saying not to." What? We've got 10 issues finished here. Yeah. What if the series is a failure? We're stuck with a year's worth of material. And then, with my classic degree of tact, I said, "It's not going to be a failure. It's X-Men. It's me. It's Salva." That was not the way to, actually, my real response was, "What are you going to do if it's a failure?" And I said, "Not my problem." Which did not go over well.
No, I can imagine.
The point is that this is a job. The job is to produce books to schedule. If you do it or you don't. If, the material I'm working on won't probably be in print till sometime mid-late next year.
Yeah.
I'm still producing it. The nice thing is it'll give me time to go over it to make sure it's perfect. But that notwithstanding, this is the job. This is, Stan had 3 rules. Had 3 rules. Get it in on time. Don't be a pain in my ass, and do good work. 2 out of 3, you keep your job.
Yeah.
But the whole point was get it in on time, because we can't afford to miss schedule. And that's
in terms of upcoming work that is being scheduled. One of the things that they've officially announced is, there's been this series going on for a few months called X-Men Legends. And it's a lot of, sort of classic creators, Louise and Walt Simonson did a couple of issues, and Larry Hama did some, and Fabian I think did the first 2. And, one of the things that was very conspicuous was, well, if you're doing X-Men Legends, how do you not have Chris Claremont? And now they have announced that there is a story that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm very excited about it. And for our visual listeners, you can see the cover is an Alan Davis cover, and you're telling an Excalibur story. Yeah. I don't know how much you're able to say about it, but in terms of, were you given the choice of, you can tell a story about anything you want, or did they say, "Hey, how about an Excalibur story"?
No, they wanted a Nightcrawler story.
Oh, okay.
And I said, "Okay, works for me." And this is basically what happened between X-Men FF and Excalibur. special edition,
Right.
which was a prequel in and of itself. This is how they got better.
Yeah.
But it's also a postscript to
The Mutant Massacre.
No, to Inferno. The
Oh, right.
Where because where the X-Men die.
Yeah.
And
Fall of the Mutants, I
Fall of the
think, is
Mutants,
that one.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember this stuff. I've
I
only
mean, look, every
was a
year
long
there was a
time
big
ago
every
in a
year there
gal-
was a big crossover event. It's hard to keep track of which one
and
was which.
it's all Wheezy's and my fault because we started it with Walter and me and Wheezy and I with the Marauders.
Yeah, that one's Mutant Massacre. Yeah. I mean,
we started with the Massacre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which,
and
but the thing, so the thing here is this basically takes place in the last exchange between Mystique and Forge. Basically, is the subtext is, "I'm gonna get you, sucker. You killed my baby. You're doomed."
Yeah.
And Forge is like, "I'll be stoic." Well, this is what happens next. Don't piss off Mystique. You won't like her when she's pissed.
The interesting thing about Excalibur, and it is something that is a particular favorite of both Michael and myself. For me, it was very simple that's where really three of my favorite characters all went. They migrated to this new book, but it's tonally so different, and it's fun and it's funny in a lot of the cases. I wanted to kind of ask you about that. And but Michael, I figure I'm going to step away for a moment. But Michael, I wanted you to talk about why you like Excalibur so much, and I'll be back in about 1 minute.
Gosh, I think one of the reasons I love it so much is because it's not in America, and that I was raised kind of like in a house of Anglophiles, so it was neat to see across the pond. I felt like it was neat to finally see characters that we loved that were young and really important in the team move over to another team and be just as important, if not important, and how much is involved in the realm of magic in the book.
Well, I mean, if it weren't in a drawer, I'd show you my red passport, and it's just me going home. No, it's Alan and I wanted to do a book that was fun. We wanted to do something different from Uncanny. We wanted to just build. I mean, since basically I created everybody except for Nightcrawler, I created everybody on that cover. Well, actually, no, I didn't really create. Okay, Alan created Meg, and Len created Nightcrawler. But it was like, we're all here. We all want to do something that isn't like the rest of Marvel.
Right.
And
yeah, it definitely has a completely different feel than all the others.
And we'll leave aside the social implications of a star character running around with giant spikes coming out of her clothes. Or as Kitty mentions in that very issue, how the hell can she walk in these shoes? But that's just me.
Do you keep up on the new iteration of Excalibur that's playing out?
No, that's what I was saying. I've been trying to find a way to download them.
Oh, that's going to be the first thing you see on Comixology, I guess.
Yeah, but
they need to give you a Marvel Unlimited pass. I don't know if it's on there yet. They need to hook you up.
Marvel Unlimited is like 6 months behind, though. So but I guess better in 6 months than not at all.
Yeah, well, I would have said that 6 months ago, but right now, no, I need it. It is that it is. But the point with this is that We just wanted to go in different directions. The girl has a dragon, so let's give them a pan-dimensional train. Let's go on a voyage through other dimensions where you can see versions of reality that are very, very weird. Let's put them in a lighthouse where if you walk down in the basement and turn on the lights, you'll never know what runs in, what's waiting for you. Let's do a series where people wear normal clothes and, kill off Brian's old girlfriend without anybody noticing. Dum, 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 dum. I figured arrogantly, anything the other Alan could do, I could try and do better. Old fart. Me, not him.
Right. Well,
I wasn't talking about Alan Davis.
Oh, you're talking about Alan Moore?
The other Alan, yes.
Yeah, the other Alan.
In not terms of or anything.
No. In terms of sorry, in terms of Excalibur, we have a question from someone, and so her name is Anna Papart, and she's a professor at Brock University, and that's in St. Catharines, Ontario. Now, in addition to being a professor, she also does a podcast. She's one of the hosts of an Excalibur podcast where each week they go through one of the issues I guess there's 130 something. So they spend a lot of time talking about Nightcrawler. And the name of the podcast, by the way, is Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow, which of course is a turn of phrase from some of the earliest issues of it. And so week in, week out, but I know that because I follow them on social media, they talk about sort of, this idea of Kurt Wagner as a sexy character.
Sorry, they talk about
Kurt Wagner, Nightcrawler as a sexy character. And so, and they feel like Excalibur is really what sort of ramps it up a notch. And there's specific, her specific question is, do you have any regrets or hopes that maybe one day you could play out the Brian, Megan, and Kurt sort of dynamic? She uses the term love triangle.
It's not. There's no Brian, Megan, and Kurt love triangle.
I see.
Just like there's no Scott, Emma, Jean love triangle.
That's fair.
What was her question about Girls' School from Heck?
Oh, so the question about Girls' School from Heck was, I guess that's your final, that's actually the issues that they're doing right now as we're recording. And I guess that timing coincided with when you left Marvel. So I guess the question was there a sort of a sense of finality or that? Did you consciously choose that to be your final arc, or is that just the way it went? That's what her question was.
No, it's just the way it went. None of my arcs were chosen to be my final arc. Right. I had Uncanny and X plotted out for a year or roughed out for a year. No, it was just we got into a fight and I lost. Jim won. I wasn't about to play second fiddle on the best-selling book in the business that I basically made after through the 80s and 90s. No, Girls' School from Heck was again me. It was much like Mechanics. I wanted to get the characters out of the box. I wanted Kitty in a school where she could be a badass. And play against type. I would have loved to have gone on with that. Just because the whole thing was built around her and the Courtney iteration of Saturnine, who was trying to seduce her to the dark side.
Right.
Because the whole point was she is the core of the future of the mutant franchise. At least in my iteration. In terms of what was her other question?
Well, it was in terms of the sort of the portrayal of of Kurt sort
Oh,
of
Kurt.
really ramping up the yeah.
No, I mean,
and honestly, there's a second part to her question that ties directly into this,
Mhm.
which is, would you hope that one day sort of that there would be a film version of Kurt where he's the more swashbuckling, and she uses the term sex positive version of Kurt.
The challenge with that is the CGI.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the element that defines it is in the giant size, where he shows up and Brian's shit-faced because his sister's dead, and Kurt just comes in and basically throws him in the channel, and it's like, and rips him a new one. Kurt is not shy. He is a hero. He is he is one of the alpha leaders of the canon. Which is why in X-Men Forever, I switched visuals with him and Megget. Him and Rogue, because all of us, part of the joy of him being who he is looking like a demon and acting like a hero. If he looks like a hero, which he looks ridiculously handsome, and he is the epitome of what a hero should look like, it's nowhere near as much fun. Whereas Rogue discovers when she looks like Kurt, she has a blast. But the thing, no, Kurt has been and always remains one of the fundamental core characters of my canon, which is why he's in the story in the giant special, because he's in many ways the go-to guy you least expect. But also, this is why Bloody Bess, the evil Betsy, falls for him hook, line, and sinker, because he's the kind of guy she normally kills, but there's something about him that just grabs her by the heart, and he's fun. He's just plain fun. Now, you could think of all sorts of rude reasons why he's fun, but that's for the privacy of the reader's own imagination. But no, with Kurt, the triangle is what's her face?
His girlfriend would be Amanda Sefton.
Yep.
Yeah.
It takes me like 2 minutes to think. Who, as I said, last I looked, is up in heaven fighting off demons, protecting, the protecting the highest authority. And now he's run into Bess, and it's just like, holy cow, how can you love two people? Because it's a Claremont book, and he's a twisted bastard. But the point is that no, he's one of the alpha heroes, which is, and bearing in mind that at this point in reality, Kat is barely 14.
Yeah.
And theoretically would have remained in that 14/15, not quite 16 range for as long as I could get away with it. Little knowing that other writers would have different ideas, but there you go. Now she's just an old fart like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, at some point it comes around, and that's what happens to all of us, unfortunately.
No, but that's not what happens to characters. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
it's
look, Archie and Jughead have been in high school for 50 years, so
it's fine by me. I mean, what I find astonishing is not that Clark and Lois are married, not that their kid is bisexual.
Yeah,
it's the fact that they have a kid at all, that they're married at all. I mean, for me as a reader, the minute characters get married, they're boring, because nothing positive can come of that. Everything after that is do we break up?
Yeah.
No.
Well, we know how you do it. It's a soap opera. Once you're together, or once you're going to get married, they're going to die or get divorced.
Technically speaking, most of Shakespeare is a soap opera. The point is that
it's more fun with the stakes, right?
Well, no, it's as long as everybody's single, temptation exists in a non-pejorative manner. The minute you get hooked with someone, the minute you make a real commitment, i.e. a marriage, the temptation becomes a breaking of your word. The thing that destroyed Scott for me was he walked out on his wife and kid for his old girlfriend. The thing that destroyed the rest of the X-Men for me was let him.
Yeah.
No one, absolutely no one on the team either told Jean or said to him, go the fuck back to Madeline. This is wrong. That's unacceptable. It's like, because at that point, the only option left to him is divorce. And how can you have faith in a hero character who dumps his wife and kid the minute his old girlfriend shows up? Especially after the last 4 months leading up to the wedding were all about, do you love me because I look like your old girlfriend or because I'm me? And we went back and forth and up and down with it. And he finally said, because you're you. That's a commitment. You do not ever breach a commitment like that. Not in a comic book, not in a code comic book, because that means when you give your word, it's serious. You don't walk back from it.
Yeah, and I mean,
hero. If he was Dr. Doom, not a problem, but he's a hero. And there were lots of ways around it. I mean, this is the pitch I made to Shooter then. Leave Jean dead. Have Scott decide to come back, get re-upped for a new tour. He goes back to the war. Madeline and the kid come along because she's not going to be separated from the man she loves. In a time of crisis, she's going to stand by him. Who do you bring in? You bring in Jean's big sister, Sarah. What is her power? She's a living Cerebro. Boom. What do you have? You have a relatively unattached woman, and you now have someone for Hank and Bobby and Warren to play off of. Okay. Bobby is gay, but he can talk about it with her. He can work it out through her. Warren, he's got other girlfriends. Big deal. Hank, maybe it's serious, maybe it's not, but at least there you have some sexual tension. What do you have?
Did you think of Bobby as gay way back then?
No, I'm relating it to the current stuff.
Okay.
No, back then he had girlfriends.
Yeah. That was kind of a question I wanted to get to, but we kind of got past that earlier.
Yeah, well, but the point is, Scott is the new Charlie. His stress comes from dealing with his wife and kid when he's at war, when he's doing superhero stuff. Her stress is, I've got to keep his identity secret because they're pretending to be anti-mutant people when they're mutants. For me, that's godsend. I could write that stuff from here to almost to eternity and have fun. But to just bring back the girlfriend, that's why I was saying, if I'd known that was in play, we probably never would have created Rachel, because then it just becomes too complicated.
Yeah. Well, and it's really that fundamental character flaw that had to exist out of necessity, that was out of your hands. So Scott goes from being somebody that you think of like a Captain America or a Superman. You think of him as like a hero with a capital H, and then you're like, oh no, he's just a guy, and he has made he's made a really terrible decision, and you really can't think of him the same after that. It's not that he's not a good person; he has made a terrible decision, though.
if we'd known that was happening, if we'd known that was coming, we could have argued about it and planned for it.
Yeah.
The problem is that it just came flying out of nowhere. And in the original text of the first issue, there was no reference to it at all. He just hung up the phone and left. And essentially, Madeline ceased to exist. And that's, that was
Seems
a mistake.
out of character for him.
Yeah. Well,
but see, the problem with that is when a writer who will remain nameless wanted to have Kitty have a relationship with Pete Risdom in Excalibur. And it was pointed out that she's 15, even in England, that's statutory rape. So he immediately made her 7 years older. So he could just throw her into bed with him. You do stuff, they let you get away with it, then it becomes canon. And the minute I came back as a boss, I tried to revert it, but the fans went crazy.
Oh,
so it's just, it's from one perspective, it sucks. From another perspective, get used to it. That's the way it is. That's the problem with dealing with these as products and dealing with them as real people. And my challenge is that I've known these kids for the better part of, God help me, 45 years.
Yeah.
I can't relate to them as product.
Yeah.
That said, my computer's going to run out of juice in about where I'm at 15%.
Okay.
And it's 3:30 and I've got to
we have talked to you for an incredibly long time, and
I really appreciate it.
And I'm going to get in one last listener question, viewer question, and then we will save all the rest for next time, because I know that there always will be a next time. So the last one, it's another one of these. So his name is J. Andrew Damon, and he's at the University of Waterloo. Oh, am I? Anyway, in Canada. And so Andrew, he does. Yeah. So the Canadians seem to spend a lot of time studying.
They love
work.
you.
Yeah. So he has, so he has a site called the Claremont Run, and they analyze a lot of things. And he actually has a grant, and he has researchers and assistants.
Oh my God.
So it's sort of fascinating. It's very easy for me to go down the rabbit hole of people who have these sites, because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember these stories that I read, way back when. But he specifically asks about this. So, your works right now are achieving this level of scholarly attention. And he says that the term Claremont studies is actually a thing. How do you react to this development and the fact that you have this literary legacy that people that we've shared with you over the course of this conversation actually study and analyze this work that you did, in some cases, like you said, 45 years ago?
And there I thought it was a question about the X-Men's baseball games.
Yes, well, it wasn't that kind of a softball. Though, by the way, I always enjoyed the X-Men baseball games.
They don't play softball, they play hardball.
Yeah.
It's... who'd have thought?
Yeah.
I just set out to write good stories and have fun, but also stories about the world around me. I mean, yes, I am white. Yes, I am European, but I got off a boat just like a lot of other people. In my case, it was the Queen Mary, but go figure. And adapting, being an immigrant to this country, in more than a few cases, turned out to be surprisingly challenging. Getting beat up for wearing the wrong clothes to school. That's an unexpected surprise. When I was a kid, I didn't much like being here. I wanted to go back home. But, things grow on you. The more I stay, the more interesting the land around me became, the more interesting the people became. So one learns to adapt, but more importantly, it's growing up in the 60s was unique. I mean, it's like, yeah, one could say we have a war now, we had a war then, but for me, when I think about it, is that time was defined by assassinations, by people expressing hope, and suddenly the hope's gone. And then the hope gets transformed into actual programs and a sense that things will get better. And the next 50 years turns out to be an ongoing and bitter attempt to erase it. And the thought that finally it might happen, whether it's equal rights, whether it's social aid, political equality. It's sort of a terrifying it's living in Reed Richards' New York and wondering if it's turning into Victor Doom's Latveria sometimes. Not New York per se, but on a wider basis.
Sure.
And taking refuge in a world where Thor can ride a taxi cab and say, if I was flying through the air, people would think the God of Thunder is flying overhead. Is something awful about to happen? So I will take a mortal conveyance such as this, so as not to alarm people with whom I share this realm. That was cool. Yeah. Not quite as cool as like Thor taking over Las Vegas and everybody having a drunk out.
Sorry. Favorite episode.
That was Michael's favorite episode of
Yep.
What If.
But, it's trying to find a way to make things work and not understanding why other people, a great many other people, find that antithetical. But figuring, at least on paper, at least in these stories, people behave themselves. That sounds silly, but it's like having a confrontation between Kurt and Mystique, where Mystique knows the MacGuffin, that he's her son, but we haven't revealed it to him yet, so I can't reveal it to the audience yet.
Right.
But what are the implications of that? What are the revelations of that? I know how Mystique reacted the first time she saw him. She ran away because it was horrible. My son looks like this. But that's me dealing with Mystique and Destiny the way I dealt with them, and the fact that he is their son rather than Mystique and a demon, which is some other writer's invention.
Correct.
It's trying to strike a balance between what is outside my window and what I want it to be in front of my computer. And that's a question I think all of us face in one way or another, but I'm still trying to figure it out. It's still a part of everything I write one way or another. And at the same time, because it's fiction, I try to have laughs along the way. I want the world to be less nasty. I want people to be less, not simply antagonistic, but aggressive. I want them to understand what is fun and what can make us better. If I can have Mormons love this work, that means if you tell the right story and present the right people and ask the right questions, the answers may surprise you and may surprise the reader, and maybe one can go on to somewhere better as a result. And to me, that's not a bad thing. I find it hard to write a story where people intentionally separate themselves from everywhere else. I would rather write a story where, yes, they may be in a quote unquote prison, but the point is to find a way through the wall so that people on the outside can see we're not bad, and we can see they're not bad. And where will that lead us next? Is that such a challenge? Is that such a creepy thing?
Well, that's a very noble thing to want for your legacy.
Absolutely.
But a legacy implies that I'm done, and I'm not.
No.
It's like, you want a legacy, come back in 10 years. Oh, or 40. Yeah. 40 is better.
40 is better. Yeah. Well, we're keeping you from your legacy, and there's
you're keeping me from my deadline, which is far worse. You're going to
and there was
editor coming after
that binary cover.
Yeah. Well, there was no way that I could include this into the conversation, but I found it, so I'll leave with this cover up, this great Rachel cover that you referenced earlier. Chris, we always appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It's always just wonderful and insightful. And we look forward to your X-Men Legends and also your top secret project for next year. That there's rumblings out there what they are, and I hope that it's accurate. But I can't wait to read more and talk more about it. Sorry, what was that?
Well, wait, one last thing.
Yeah.
If you want what I think is probably the Jean costume I fell in love with 20 years ago. If you look, 25 at this point. If you look at Adam Kubert's, it's the first issue. I think the first issue we did together, which would be, this is 1998. It's like he took what was the description of the first 2 pages and spread it out to a 5-page arc, but still fit everything in the book. But it's her and Cable walking through this giant cave underneath Venice. And he came up with this outfit for her, which is, I look at it and I think that is it. If I had my choice of what I put, how I would love to see Jean, that's the bingo. So if you ever find it, put it up.
Yeah, no, I'll try to find it. I'll try to find that one for next time. I think I know the one you mean, but my fingers aren't as fast as they used to be.
Yeah, no, the cover is, the splash page is Gambit holding 5 cards, and there's a face of all the X-Men on each card.
Oh wow!
Oh no, it's a stitch of an issue. It's like I invented new characters every issue. The minute I was off the book, it was forgotten. So they're all lying out there for me to exploit later on. Anyway, sorry about that. I just had to rant one last time.
No, I appreciate it. And obviously, people want to keep in touch with you. You're on Instagram, Chris Claremont, and that's when they'll know where you are. And I don't know what other appearances you have, but I know you're scheduled to be in Southern California in mid-December for Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario. What's that?
C2E2.
Yeah. So there's a few of those. And the one in Ontario, California is the one I'll be at. So that's of personal interest. So, I've got...
I'll be flying there from Denver. So I'll probably be like, from Las Vegas. So I will be, or maybe I'm driving. I have no idea.
Right.
But it'll be an interesting
You just go where they tell you. Well, Chris, thanks again. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
Once again, the pleasure was mine. And once again, we've gone like an hour and a half over budget.
Yes, exactly.
My wife will kill me.
Well, I'm not going to tell her how long we talked. I'm not going to tell her if you don't. But Chris, we appreciate it. And of course, we end the same way you always do, as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.